He called him my alpha, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And for one terrifying, heart-wrenching second, I almost believed him. That night was supposed to be ordinary, just me, the empty sidewalks of downtown Chicago, and the comfort of anonymity that only a big city could give. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. A stranger Omega stumbled out of the shadows, eyes locking onto my boyfriend, and the words fell from his lips with the weight of a gunshot. "That's my alpha." I froze. The world tilted. My chest tightened with something I couldn't name: betrayal, fear, confusion, maybe all of them at once. Ethan didn't flinch. My Ethan, steady, stoic, 23 years old, with the kind of calm that could stop storms. He just stared at the boy, lips pressed into a thin line, rain soaking into the collar of his jacket. His silence was louder than any confession. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I knew him at all. The Omega looked younger, maybe 20, maybe less. He was trembling, soaked to the bone, but his gaze never wavered. It was raw, desperate, like he had been searching for Ethan for years. "Say something?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rain. Ethan's hand twitched at his side. He didn't look at me, didn't look at the boy either. Just the pavement, like the truth was buried somewhere between the cracks. And in that silence, my chest ached. Because silence is never empty. Silence is full of secrets. The boy god, I didn't even know his name yet, stepped closer. His lower lip trembled, but his voice was clear. "I found you," he said, and then softer, broken. "Don't leave me again." Again. The words sliced through me like a blade. My mind raced, trying to stitch together a puzzle I didn't have the pieces for. Ethan had never mentioned an Omega before. Never mentioned anything that sounded like this. But the boy's tone carried history, a story I hadn't been invited to. And worse, I saw Ethan's jaw clench. His Adam's apple bobbed as if he were swallowing words he couldn't let out. "Ethan?" I demanded, heat rising in my throat. "What the hell is he talking about?" He finally looked at me, eyes stormy, regret burning in the blue. But no words came, just a flicker of something that almost looked like guilt. And suddenly, the city didn't feel like home anymore. Felt like a cage. I should have walked away. A sane person would have. But when you're in love, when you've built your world around someone, even betrayal feels like quicksand. You sink while still reaching for their hand. So I stayed. The Omega boy finally gave me his name. "Lucas," he said, voice trembling but steadying the longer he spoke. "Lucas Hale." Ethan's eyes shut briefly, as if the sound of that name was both salvation and damnation. And then Lucas said something that sent my world spiraling even further. "He's not just your alpha. He's mine too." It's funny. The way heartbreak doesn't always come with screaming or glass shattering. Sometimes it's quiet, steady rain, a pulse that skips a beat, a silence that stretches until you forget how to breathe. I stared at Ethan, waiting, begging for him to deny it, to laugh, to call it crazy, to pull me close and tell me there was no secret, no betrayal, that I was his one and only, like he'd promised 100 times before. But he didn't. Ethan's silence screamed louder than thunder. Lucas swayed where he stood, exhaustion dragging his shoulders down. Rain plastered his hoodie to his thin frame, and for a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But pity is hard when your own heart feels like it's splintering apart. "You don't understand," Lucas said to me, his eyes glassy. "We're bonded. Ethan and I, we rebound by something you can't just walk away from. It's written in our blood. Bonded." The word was a curse. In the Omegaverse, that wasn't casual. It was soul deep, primal, inescapable. And Ethan had never told me. My knees felt weak. The city lights blurred. I tasted iron in my mouth, though I hadn't bitten my tongue. "Tell me he's lying," I whispered, my voice breaking like glass. But Ethemy Alpha, my love, my everything, only closed his eyes. And I knew. The night became a blur after that. Lucas stumbled and Ethan caught him. His strong arms, the same arms that had held me through my worst nights, wrapped around someone else like they belonged there. Like muscle memory. I couldn't stand it. I turned and walked. The rain swallowed me whole, but nothing could drown out the echo of that one word. Bonded. And as I staggered through the empty streets of Chicago, my heart cracked open on every step, because love wasn't supposed to feel like this. Love wasn't supposed to be a secret. Yet here I was, loving a man whose past had just come knocking on our door, and I didn't know if I'd survive it. You think the world ends when the truth shatters you, but sometimes it only begins again in a way you never expected. I had walked away that night, my heart bleeding out on the Chicago pavement. Yet even as I left Ethan behind with Lucas in his arms, I knew this wasn't the end. Love doesn't let you walk that easily. It drags you back, bruised and furious, but unable to stop reaching for warmth. The days that followed were agony. Ethan didn't chase me. I didn't pick up his calls. My apartment was too quiet, my chest too loud with the echo of that word bonded. It haunted me, poisoned me, but it also pulled at me because love is cruel like that. It demands answers, even when the answers might destroy you. So when Ethan finally showed up at my door, soaked again from rain, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights, I let him in. Not because I forgave him, but because I needed the truth. I never wanted you to find out this way, he said, his voice hoarse, like he'd been swallowing apologies for days. Then how? My voice cracked. By lying to me until we grew old? By letting me love you while you hid an entire bond behind my back? Ethan flinched, but he didn't look away. Lucas and I. It wasn't what you think. I laughed bitterly. He called you his alpha. He did, Ethan admitted. Because once, long ago, I was. His story unfolded slowly, painfully, like peeling bandages off old wounds. He had met Lucas when they were teenagers, two souls lost in a system that chewed up omegas and spat them out broken. Ethan had protected him, sheltered him, and one desperate night, when the world threatened to tear them apart, their instincts had forged a bond. But bonds made in fear don't always last. Ethan had left out of guilt, out of shame, out of the need to protect Lucas from himself. He thought walking away was mercy. He thought silence was kindness. And then he met me. I didn't tell you, he whispered, voice cracking. Because I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew, you'd see me as broken. As someone tied to a past I can't erase. Tears stung my eyes. So instead, you let me love a ghost. You let me fall for someone whose heart was already claimed. No, his hands reached for me, trembling. My heart is yours. It always has been. Lucas and I, we share history, not love. That bond was never about choice. But you, his voice broke. You are the one I chose. And God help me, I wanted to believe him. But Lucas's face lingered in my mind, the desperation, the pleading, the way he clung to Ethan like drowning to air. How do I look him in the eye? I asked, knowing I stand where he thinks he belongs. Ethan swallowed hard. By understanding that love isn't a chain. Bonds can tie bodies, but not hearts. What Lucas and I had, it was survival. What you and I have, it's living. I didn't forgive him that night, but I didn't send him away either. Instead, we sat in silence, the weight of the past pressing heavy between us, until exhaustion pulled me into uneasy sleep. And when I woke, Ethan was still there, curled on my couch, eyes swollen, chest rising and falling with the fragile peace of someone who finally stopped running. For the first time, I realized wasn't my invincible alpha. He was just a man, flawed, haunted, but trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The days turned into weeks. Lucas didn't disappear. He couldn't. His life was tangled with Ethan's and by extension with mine. I met him again, this time not in the rain, but in daylight. He looked smaller somehow, his sharp edges dulled by exhaustion. You hate me, he said before I could speak. I shook my head. No, I hate the circumstances. I hate what it did to us. But I don't hate you. His eyes watered. I never meant to take him from you. And you didn't? I said, voice firm though my heart trembled. Because love doesn't get stolen. It gets given. And Ethan gave his to me. For the first time, Lucas smelled a weak, broken thing but real. And in that moment, I saw him not as a rival, but as another victim of fate's cruelty. Another soul just trying to survive. Healing wasn't instant. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day. But Ethan showed up, again and again, proving with every small act that he wasn't running anymore. He let me rage. He let me cry. He let me doubt him, and he answered every doubt with patience, with vulnerability, with raw honesty. And slowly, I began to believe again. One evening, weeks later, we found ourselves on a rooftop, the city glowing beneath us, the sky painted gold by the setting sun. Ethan stood behind me, his arms circling my waist, his breath warm against my neck. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. "Maybe not," I teased softly, leaning back against him. "But you're mine anyway." He chuckled low and rough, before pressing his lips to my temple. "Always." I turned in his arms, meeting his gaze. For the first time in weeks, there was no storm in his eyes, only calm, steady devotion. And I realized then that love isn't about perfection. It's about choice. About choosing each other, over and over, even when the past threatens to pull you apart. So I chose him, and he chose me. Lucas eventually found his own path. He stayed in Chicago, but the desperation in his eyes faded as he carved out a life that was his. Not tethered to Ethan, not defined by a bond forged in fear. We became something unexpected, not friends, not quite, but not enemies either. Just two people who had survived the same storm. And sometimes survival is enough. Looking back, I realized the night Lucas called Ethan my alpha wasn't the end of us. It was the beginning of a truth we needed to face. A test we needed to survive. And we did. Not unscarred. Not untouched. But together. Because real love doesn't hide in the shadows. It fights. It bleeds. It endures. And as Ethan held me on that rooftop, the city sprawling endlessly before us, I finally understood he wasn't hiding anymore. And neither was I. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.